Good evening. I would like to go ahead and get started with the board meeting. If we could have it called to order at 4:36 p.m. Let's go ahead and start with roll, please.
Hi, this is Sherry Berta. I'll be doing the roll call. Commissioner Jantz.
Here.
Commissioner Benton.
Here.
Commissioner Brimhall. Commissioner Collinsworth. Commissioner Hensley. I'm sorry, Commissioner Collinsworth. I didn't hear her.
Is she muted?
She's here. I see her.
Okay.
She probably can't.
Commissioner Hensley.
Here.
Commissioner Hutch.
Here.
Commissioner Keith.
Here.
Commissioner O'Rourke.
Here.
Commissioner Cienko.
Here.
Commissioner Vanover.
Here.
Commissioner Webster.
Here.
And Commissioner Williams.
Here.
ACDHH staff present is Sherry Collins, Carmen Smith, Betty McIntyre, Curtis Humphreys, Emmett Hassan, Victoria Vaughn, Jeremy McCown, and Sherry Berta.
And for the record, please, can you recognize the Attorney General Joanne Handy is here present.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for doing the roll call. I want to start with approval of the meeting minutes, and then we will move on with the other items on the agenda. Do I have a motion to accept the meeting minutes? Commissioner Webster?
Susan Webster, so moved.
So the motion has been moved.
What exactly was the motion?
Approve the minutes.
So it seems we have a motion for approval of the minutes. Do we have
Right.
any discussion?
I move we
or
approve the
second?
minutes as presented.
Thank you. For the record, we need a second for the minutes. Do we need to vote? Everyone in favor raise their hand. We'll go ahead and approve the meeting minutes. Everyone that agrees, please raise your hand. Any opposition? Seeing none, motion carries. Okay, so let's go on to item number 3 on the agenda, which is the chair's report and summary. I would like to actually move around on the agenda a little bit here. What I'm going to do is, let's go to number 8. We're going to do that after the report. Since we've been putting that off for quite some time, I want to make sure that that does get addressed this evening. So that is going to be after the legislative update, which is number 5. So then number 8 will then become number 6. I'd like to acknowledge everyone there on the board in the community. I I'm very, very thrilled that we have new appointments here on the board. And I'd like to thank you so much for your dedication and your time in joining the board and the community. We are close to having a full board now. We just have one vacancy left, and that is for a hearing aid dispenser. And we are working to get that position filled. If you know anyone in the community that is looking to represent us here on the commission, please let them know how to reach out and contact us. I do have some unfortunate and sad news. Commissioner Vanover, this is going to be his last board meeting. So he will be resigning and
Oh,
moving.
no.
So I'm so sad to see him leave. I wanted to take the time to thank you for your service, Commissioner Vanover, and your time. You will be greatly missed.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
I better see you on the board and the commission there in California for sure.
That's my plan.
Also, you will, Suke, you have noticed is not here on the board anymore, and some other people that are no longer on the board anymore because their terms have expired, and we wanted to make sure that we thank them for their time and their commitment and their service to the community and their hard work as well. And just a gentle reminder to let everyone know that the next board meeting will be May 20th at 4:30. So please make sure that you put that into your calendars now. And for the board members as well, my understanding is that we will be continuing to do our virtual board meetings for the next several meetings until the COVID cases have reduced or until we are permitted to gather again, which is an ongoing conversation that we are having with Sherry Collins, the executive director of the commission, just to get a pulse and see how things are going within the community. So please, as you're out in the community, let people know that we are planning to get back to the outreach and hosting board meetings in local areas eventually, but we do have to make sure that we are addressing the safety standards of COVID, and we appreciate their patience and understanding as we navigate the safety and health of everyone. So that pretty much is it for the chair's report and update. And so now I'm going to turn it over to Sherry Collins, the executive director, for her update.
Yeah, you noticed, and then I'm multitasking. The link for the public is not working, so hold on, please.
Terry, I posted the link on Facebook, the correct link. So just as an option to direct people, the correct link is on Facebook.
Jeremy, I'm online as well. It shows video is unavailable from the website. That link is not working.
Okay, I'm on the website right now, and whenever I click that link, it opens up and it shows you guys on YouTube. Did you hit F5 or refresh? Please hit F5 and refresh it. Refresh the page.
Okay, it's working.
PV says that Commissioner Jant says he can see that as well. Okay, it seems as though we have resolved this technical issue. Thank you, Sherry, for having an eye on that. We want to make sure that the community can access. So, okay, we're going to hand it over now to you for your executive report.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Hopefully the public can now see the live streaming while this meeting. Okay, I'm trying not to use my glass because of the glare. And so I think my notes are big enough for me to see. Well, first of all, again, welcome the new board members. Yesterday, we had a new board orientation training all afternoon. We had 2 sessions to accommodate their schedule, and we met for 2 hours each session. So hopefully tonight they will feel comfortable, not feel so overwhelmed for tonight's meeting. And so I'm really thrilled to have a full board, within a section of what the board chair has shared with you. Since we met last, November, and then holiday December and January, usually when we meet in February, it seems like we don't have as much to share, but actually we were very busy in between the holidays and the legislative session, and with COVID-19 vaccine rolling out. So I'm just going to pick some highlights that was in the report. I mean, there's a lot of activity that's included in our report, and I hope that you all had the opportunity to review and read those, the report. And of course, you can ask me, any questions or for clarification. But a few things that I want to highlight, pick up from our last board meeting, we talked about the licensure, the legal aid, suspension, and we have already moved forward working with the governor's office and the attorney general's office. You have to take a formal process, so it is happening right now. And we're just waiting for a response back from the attorney general. So it is moving forward. And if you have any specific questions about that, Carmen Green is here. And so I wasn't sure if you were on or not. If she can, give you an update report specifically on that topic. But I wanted to share where we left off from the last board meeting, and it's moving forward. As you know, we have been working with I'm just going to need my glasses. The Arizona Peace Officers and Standards Training, that AZ Post. We have partnered with AZ Post to develop training curriculum material specifically for police officers, news trained police officers, in case they encounter a person who is deaf, hard of hearing, or deaf-blind. And we're just thrilled that we had the opportunity to partner with the police training program, and it's been a long project. And now we're at the completion and expect to roll out to begin to use that training materials in April. And there was a lot of videos was involved, and our staff was involved. So we were very proud of that effort. And I'm not even sure if this is the first in the nation. If not, we're one of the few. And it's just at a high level partnership. So I'm really proud of Carmen and her team for their work and commitments to complete that project, especially during COVID, and they had to do a lot of things through Zoom and things like that. So I'm really, really happy to see that is being completed, and can't wait to hear more of the responses from those new officers take the training. And also the Let's Get to Work campaign. We had planned this beginning of last year, and things got put off to really, well, we've already launched it last August, but we couldn't really promote it because, we're working from home and people are losing their job. Well, we're now getting back to promote the program or our partnership on employment employment campaign in mid-March, we have partnered with the Arizona Broadcast Association to do PSA, public service announcement, PSA on TV and radio. This is a real huge opportunity for us to work with the Arizona Broadcast Association. So we're really thrilled. Hopefully we'll get a lot more exposure in the spring and moving forward. Well, COVID-19 is our everyday, concern. We want to make sure the general public has access to the information, know what's going on, and obviously the vaccine is the focus. And Betty and Carmen are involved with different groups to make sure to let them know, those who are in charge of the vaccine communicate access. It's important to our community. It's still a problem. And I know that it's not just us deaf and hard of hearing people who are addressing those barriers. It's also other people with disability in the community. There are some concerns of lack of access, including transportation for those who have a physical disability. So we continue to do our part. And I can tell you that personally, I am considered a high risk because of my health issue. I received my first vaccine, and I can tell you my story. Won't do that tonight, but I've encountered some communication barriers. The process itself was good. The workers were wonderful. They were very, patient, but the communication became a real concern. So we'll continue to do our part to improve that, and it really would help. It requires more effort if we partner with other disability communities. So we'll keep you posted if any new opportunity of awareness to the general public that is fully accessible. We'll let you know. I want to move on to the financial part of the report for the new board member. That what you see is pretty much of our standard. There hasn't been any, outstanding issues related with the budget. It's just paying our bills, and there's no concerns or anything during legislative session or sweeper fund. There's really no change in that. However, there's been some changing in personnel, the staff. As you all know, that my assistant has left to another job for a better opportunity, so that position is vacant. We're in the process of interviewing candidates, so hopefully we'll fill that position really quickly. Secondly, as you know, Curtis Humphreys is our business manager. He decided it was time for him to retire. We don't think so, but he decided it's time for him to retire. And his last day with us will be April 1st. So this is going to be his last board meeting. He was smart to leave April to get out of budget planning for next year this summer. So he was very smart. He knows how the system works. So I want you all to join me and congratulate Curtis on his retirement. Curtis is at the core of the agency to keep the agency running and make sure our money is spent appropriately, and a lot of behind the scenes. So really, we appreciate his service. But since this is his last board meeting with you, I thought it was important to recognize and thank his service for this day. At the same time, I wish him well. The time for him to enjoy retirement with his wife. So that concludes the summary of my board report. I'm happy to answer any question.
Thank you, Sherry. We appreciate your report and all that you had to add. I do want to add that I will genuinely miss working with you, Curtis. And before you go, we do have some, if we have any budgeting questions, we will be sure to contact you. If any members have any questions for Sherry, right now would be the time to ask. Commissioner Benton?
Yeah, hi, thank you. I just wanted to, if you could go back to the beginning of your report where you talked about the suspension of the legal A licenses and where you were in the process. So can you just explain more clearly what it is that is happening with that?
Yes, Commissioner Benton, I'm going to turn that over to Carmen, and she can, answer your question. So please, Carmen, if you can take over.
Sure. Thank you, Sherry. Commissioner Benton, as we discussed before, I think because of the COVID-related issues and all of that, we did go through the process of going to the governor's office, and we received the exemption from the rulemaking moratorium, and we were given support to do an emergency rulemaking process. That process requires us to work with the Attorney General's office. So we have submitted the paperwork to get that process started, and we are waiting to hear back from them to approve that process, agree that it does merit an emergency rulemaking. And from there is when we start what would look more like a typical rulemaking process, where you would have opportunity for feedback from stakeholders and other individuals, and they will give us specifics from the Attorney General's office as to any changes that may have happened recently and any guidelines that we would have to follow. So as soon as we hear back from the Attorney General's office, we'll certainly keep certainly the Interpreter Licensing Committee updated, as well as the full board, as to what the next steps will be for addressing that issue.
Thank you. I always forget how cumbersome the process is, that you have to go through all of those steps in the process. So we're now just in the waiting period before it goes out to the public. Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much. Any other questions about the Executive Director report? Seeing none, I would like to move on to the legislative update, please.
Good evening, everyone. Betty here, Director of Public Policy and Community Relations with the Commission. Our legislative update, so we are at next week will be the halfway mark of the legislative session. So this week, we are actually in the last week for bills to be heard in their original chamber. Next week is considered crossover week. So all the bills that made it through the committee in the House and or Senate will get crossed over to the opposite chamber for being heard. This is a pretty significant time period in the legislative session. This is also around the time when we start hearing budget conversations happening and whether or not the state budget will drop. At this point in the legislative cycle, we have not heard any rumblings related to the budget at this moment. So in fact, we are actually hearing that the Senate and the House leadership have not actually had any collaboration meetings on the state budget. So we're going to continue to listen for any of those rumblings of when we may be able to expect a budget. The budget, as just a reminder, is the one thing that the legislature has to do in the legislative session. We are tracking a couple of bills. I wanted to just point out a couple for tonight, but there's many that we are tracking through our weekly legislative update. If you do not receive that, let me know, and I'll be more than happy to make sure that you get a copy. Obviously, the first bill that I want to talk about is Senate Bill 1092. That is ACDH's bill that is sponsored by Senator Pace. LD 25. 1092 is the redo of last year's 1045 that we were unfortunately unable to get out of the House in the last steps due to the abrupt ending of the legislative session because of COVID. So we have made, this bill has made it through the Senate and has been transmitted over to the House. At this point, because next week is crossover week, we anticipate that our bill will be first read in the House and then assigned to the House Health and Human Services Committee. And we will go through the exact same process as we did over in the Senate. So at this point, we're not hearing any opposition to our bill. It should continue to have smooth sailing as it did last year, just short of something crazy happening, which I'm not even going to go there. It's too much. So I wanted to let you guys know about that. Another bill that we actively were working on is House Bill 2454. This is a comprehensive telemedicine bill. When this bill dropped, it was immediately brought to our attention from other legislative members and organizations to get our feedback on as it relates to telemedicine and accessibility for the deaf and the hard of hearing and deafblind communities. Just to give you a quick summary of what this comprehensive bill does is when the pandemic hit, the governor issued an executive order requiring telemedicine and insurance companies to pay for telemedicine. This bill is essentially that executive order put into a proposed law. In addition to the executive order tenets related to telemedicine, it also creates a 22-person advisory council on best practices for telemedicine. This advisory council will review pay rates, review accessibility, and will review the ongoing challenges and successes for creating, best practices related to telemedicine. And that is where we got brought in on. Last year, for the commissioners who were on the board last year, and for the new commissioners, the commission did provide some education testimony and related to some telemedicine bills last year, talked about the barriers and the challenges that the community experienced with telemedicine. And that stuck with folks. And so when this bill was proposed, we were brought in to be a member of that advisory council. So the House, the bill was amended on the House floor with several other language changes, but one of those was including the commission as a representative of that best practices advisory committee. So we felt that was a good success, and that folks were understanding that with technology, there are benefits, but there also can be some challenges to providing that services. Another bill that we are monitoring is Senate Bill 1458. This is a bill, is another redo bill from last year. This is the title of the bill is Speech Pathology Assistance. That bill passed out of the Senate Health and Human Services this morning. This bill was amended this year to address some of the concerns brought from the audiology community. Those concerns were addressed immediately. We had a huge stakeholder meeting, and within that, we cleaned up the bill a little bit. ACDH involvement is in this bill from last year was because the language actually removed the requirement of a jurisprudence test. We had concerns of that jurisprudence examination being removed because there, in that test, there's a requirement for hearing aid dispensers to provide on the bill of sale notice related to, that includes the equipment distribution program. So last year's bill, which is the same as this year's, related to our concerns, with the removal of that language, they added language requiring the Department of Health Services to create a public awareness campaign that will live on their website, specifically for hearing aid dispensers on their requirements related to the bill of sale notice. So we felt that was a very good compromise to that challenge that we saw. In addition, with the fact that the bill was reintroduced this year, we were able to go in and actually clean up the language where everywhere it said hearing impairment, they took our suggestions of changing it to deaf and hard of hearing individuals. So as we see language being proposed, whether it's our bill or not, if we see that language, we do ask for it to be corrected. So eventually we will get every state statute to be modified as we go through this process. And then there also have been several voter bills affecting the voter registration process that we have been monitoring. We have been monitoring and actively engaging with stakeholders because it creates an accessibility issues. A lot of the bills that have been dropped are about removing or creating additional barriers to early voting. For our community, early voting is the most accessible, for just because it's easier, it's less frustration to sit at home to vote versus having to go to, a polling precinct, stand in line, trying to get communication access, trying to understand what people are saying, So we were involved in a lot of voter advocacy organizations and also other disability groups. I'm happy to say the majority of those voter bills that are going through have died, meaning they are not moving forward in the process, which is good. There are still a few that we are monitoring that we believe are going to have some impacts potentially on special election boards. Special election boards are a critical resource for individuals with disability who cannot leave their home and who may not be on the permanent early voting list. They can request a ballot, a one-time ballot, to be personally delivered to their home with a bipartisan, what's called a special election board, and they can vote their ballot and then it will be counted. So that is something that we actually brought up to several organizations and to some legislative members on the potential impacts for individuals with disabilities who may need to access that service. And they should not be denied that ability to request their ballot through that procedure if they're not on the permanent early voting list. So, but that one is still going through the process as we speak. So I will continue to provide those updates in our weekly updates. And then lastly, which is the next part of discussion and action on the agenda, is House Bill 2863. This bill is called, the short title is ASDB Revisions. It was, should I just go right into that section? PV, Sherry, you want me to go into that bill as part of my update? Okay. So HB 2863, I provided you in your board packet the introduced bill and the striker. I want to talk about the striker because this past Tuesday in the House Education Committee, the sponsor of the bill, Representative Udall, sponsored what's called a Stryker amendment, and that Stryker is that one-page handout in your board packet, and that Stryker was passed unanimously out of committee. That Stryker replaces the introduced version of HB 2863. So moving forward, the one pager will become the bill that moves through the process. What the sponsor is trying to do in this bill is to clarify in statute that the Arizona State School for the Deaf and Blind is a LEA, a local education agency. And in that bill, it is stating that ASDB is an LEA for the purposes of funding and for state and federal accountability. There will be additional language changes to that bill. But before I go down there, I want to kind of talk about why this bill was brought forth in the first place. Over the last couple of years, as far as I know, when I first started back in November 2019, the Arizona Department of Education brought forth to ASDB around the fact that they did not identify or deem them to be an actual LEA. That was based off of an AG opinion from the, ADE's AAG's opinion. There was conversation back and forth between the two entities, assistant attorney generals. And over the course of the last year or so, there's been ongoing conversations trying to come to some kind of solution. What does this mean? What does this look like, particularly for ASDB? And so at the end of the day, what ends up happening is that by ASDB not being designated as an LEA, which ASDB stands is that they have always operated as an LEA. Sorry, there's a lot of acronyms here. So this kind of throws a wrench in how ASDB can proceed without that LEA designation. It will affect their budget, their funding, to the point of right now, what was stated in committee hearing on Tuesday is upwards of $2 million that ASDB will lose by not being designated as an LEA. And that $2 million is related to Title I, Title IV, and Medicaid funding. So that's really what this bill is trying to do, is making sure the sponsor's intent is to make sure that ASDB does not lose out on that funding, but also addresses the concern around who the accountability piece. My understanding is that right now, if it's operating as is, meaning no changes, nothing, that the local school districts would be accountable for the ASDB outcomes. And I'm going to look to Commissioner Hensley. I know I'm not trying to put you in a position because I know this is different, but if I'm saying anything incorrectly, please feel free to correct. Right now, ASDB's outcomes.
It's Title III as well.
Title III as well. Okay, so even more funding issues that comes to this. So I'm not sure, I'll be honest, why ADE took this position other than what I saw and I've seen in ASDB board meetings and what was disclosed in the committee hearings, is that they feel that designating ASDB as an LEA creates more challenges and issues related to what an LEA actually is required to do. However, There is statute under ASDB statute that's really still limits ASDB's enrollment, creates what their parameters are as far as it relates to the educational instruction for students who attend their campuses. And that's another thing I want to clarify. This bill is only related to the site-based campuses. It has nothing to do with any of the other programming or cooperatives with ASDB. It is really about whether or not PSD and the Tucson campus is considered an LEA. So, because ASDB, I believe, as we need to, because this bill has been dropped, I would ask to be able to take a formal position on the record related to this bill. And that is the action that we need to have the board determine, is whether or not ACDH will formally support this bill, or if we will remain neutral or oppose this bill. I will let you all know that we have registered as neutral right now in the request to speak system. And we did that just so everybody knows that we are monitoring this bill and that we have not taken a side, and I have not committed us to anything until our board meeting. So I want to make that very clear as well to the commissioners.
I have a question. So then the Tucson campus, that would be considered under TUSD if this designation of LEA did not go through, correct?
Commissioner Hutch, thank you. So I want to make sure I'm clear, is that the accountability piece would mean that, so ASDB would still be responsible for providing the instruction, the education of those children. However, it would, the state standard testing is where the accountability piece comes in. That would fall under TUSD's record. So when we're talking about schools receive letter grades, nope, Jennifer, I'm okay. Maybe I'll let
Commissioner Hensley?
Sorry, Betty. I recognize Commissioner Hensley. If we could ask her to clarify from their perspective from ASCB, because she seemed to have a different information. So please help to clarify.
Commissioner Hensley? And this is Commissioner Hensley. Just to clarify, how our students are the video is freezing, it's freezing quite a bit.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you, yeah.
Better?
Yes.
Hearing privilege. I apologize now. For our campuses, students that do end up attending our site-based campuses, they come to us from their home-based school districts.
Mhm.
So their scores and everything that are going to end up being reported back to those school districts. So TUSD, actually, a lot of their students are actually, they belong to that district. We don't get a lot of, we don't get TUSD students. They have their own operating, school teachers of the deaf and things like that. That's a very large district. They maintain their own.
Commissioner Benton?
So as of now, the LEA of record is wherever the student comes from. So if the student comes from up here in Flagstaff, the LEA of record is Flagstaff Unified School District or whatever is their school that their home district. And then
Whatever their local assigned school would be.
whatever their local assigned school. So then if they take the standardized testing, that goes back and gets mixed into the pool of all the Flagstaff, wherever their school is. So with this new proposal, the LEA of record would be ASDB as opposed to their home school. Is that correct?
Correct. Under the striker that was passed on Tuesday. And that gets to the additional language that will be added that was stated in committee is that they would also clean up the language on the bill to include that ASDB has the authority to issue diplomas and also to there will be language related to dispute resolutions will be added. In addition, two other key points to note on the potential floor amendment for this bill would include a legislative intent clause. That clause will state that is the intent of the legislature to essentially clear this up right now, but will gives flexibility for ADE and ASDB to continue to work through some of the challenges that that right now there's opposition to. So ADE has a different position on this bill than ASDB, is my understanding. So there, it'll allow the continuation for ASDB's board to continue to work with ADE. In addition, because this bill, because of the issue that's at hand and the loss of that $2 million starting now, there will be what's called a retroactivity and emergency clause placed on the amendment, meaning that if this bill passes, it will go into effect immediately upon signing of the governor and will not have to wait the traditional 90 days general effective date that the rest of the bills would without that clause. So it would also like to point that out as well on what the sponsor has stated her intention is of continuing to clean up that language.
So my next question, Commissioner Hutch, is there any reason that ASDB would be opposed to this? Because I'm not understanding that there would be any opposition with those clarifications, Betty, that you just gave us. Would there be any reason for us not to move forward?
Commissioner Hutch, right, it is my understanding that the ASDB board will be voting on whether or not to take a position on this bill at their next board meeting in March. I can only give you my recommendation for our board to take into consideration. Based off of the factors that I have brought forth today, with the additional promise of language cleanup that the sponsor has indicated, I see no reason for our board not to take a position of support on this bill. That legislative intent, to me, I feel is a good faith language that allows that ASDB board and ADE to continue to work through this after this bill is passed and address the issues. Because everyone, including us at ACDHH, our main goal is making sure that the children, the students at ASDB are getting the services and the education that they are entitled to in this state.
This is Commissioner Jantz. Any other questions or further discussion? Seeing none, I do have a question for you, Betty. Do you have any sense of when that language may be cleaned up and when all of this may be passed, or do you have any kind of timeline?
Commissioner Jans, I will do my best to answer that question. The legislation can move very quickly or it can move very slowly. It all depends on who is involved at the table. I can give you examples of that. So it has to go to rules. Rules committee is the next step. That agenda will not be posted until tomorrow because, like I said, we're in the last week of committee hearings. But once it goes to rules, it then goes to caucus, and then it will go to Cal. That can move quickly. Our bill, for example, Senate Bill 92, it went to committee. Literally a week later, we had a week, and then it went to rules, and boom, it was out of the Senate. So it can move so quickly. That's so it's anyone's guess. It just depends on how fast the sponsor wants to move her bill. And she is very committed to this. She was took a very strong position in the committee hearing on Tuesday and why she's doing this. So also as full transparency on that.
This is Commissioner Jantz. Oh, Commissioner Benton.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I just was curious on the downside, if ASDB is considered an LEA, will they not be eligible for any state funds or any other support that they're receiving at this time because they are not an LEA?
Commissioner Benton, that is actually the crux of this bill. Without them, my understanding is without them being designated as an LEA, they will lose up to that $2 million. So
yeah,
it really puts.
I understand the Title I and the Title III and all that other money, but is there other state appropriations that go to the school for the deaf and blind as it stands now, that if they become an LEA, that they will no longer receive those funds?
My Commissioner, but my understanding that would not be affected. ASDB does have a part of the general fund dollars, and that's how they are a line item in that fund. And no one has indicated that they would be at risk of losing any state dollars if they were designated as an LEA in statute.
Because other LEAs are not line items in statute, so this would be an exception.
Yeah, this is where it gets complicated with ASDB. Is that ASDB is constitutionally referenced, and it's also referenced independently in Title 15, which is the education title. And so really when we talk about, so they receive their funding as a state agency, no different than how we receive our funding. Whereas the education system gets a slot of money. So I don't see, it's not, and I would have to get clarification on this, but making them an LEA in the proposed language in the striker that I provided is very specific about what they're an LEA on. And so that, and I want to make sure I'm reading the correct language to you. I have it in front of me. So since they already received their own funding from the state, the amendment on the bill states is that it makes them eligible for federal education funding received by the state. So the Title I, Title III, and Title IV and Medicaid funding. So the other stuff is not in this mix. And if they don't become an LEA, that's not at risk either. So state dollars are not the issue at this point, is my understanding.
This is Commissioner Jantz. I'd like to clarify again that you said if they are designated as an LEA, they will lose the $2 million.
No, if they do not get designated as an LEA, they will lose $2 million.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions to clarify anything that has been discussed here? One thing to keep in mind is that we do have members of the staff here that we can ask for, they're asking for our official position here on the board, and so we'll need to make a recommendation for that. Sherry Collins?
If I can help, because I know we have some new board members. The reason why this is on the agenda, because it's affect policy on ASCB, and before we take a position, meaning allowing Betty to go or appear or sign in and follow that bill, change our position to support, oppose. So as Betty mentioned, our recommendation that we support the bill. As she stated, this will allow her to take a formal position on behalf of ACDHH. So we really need your guidance what position we should take.
Thank you, Sherry. I appreciate your comments on that. So again, I'd like to ask that there's been a request by the commission, and so how they can move forward. So we need to be able to say as the board that what our position is and how she should move forward with this. If the board feels that we should oppose it, if the board feels that we should support it, we need to make a motion to do that. If there are no more questions or no more discussion, then I suggest that someone makes a motion on either we support or oppose this bill.
This is Commissioner Keast. I move that we have the commission support this bill in order for Betty, I'm sorry, what was the bill number again? It was for ASDB to be the LEA. So I move that we support this bill.
Okay, so my understanding for clarification is that we have made a motion to show our support of the bill, specifically HB 2863. Is that correct? Commissioner Keast? Okay, great. Do we have a second? Commissioner Cinco? And a few other members have seconded as well. Everyone in favor, please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Or abstain? Anyone abstain?
This is Commissioner Hensley. I abstain.
Okay, so we have a motion and we have voted and this passes. Thank you very much,
I have
all of you.
one other question for Betty. On Bill 2454, the telemedicine, is there assignments for who will sit on that advisory council?
Yes. You want me to tell you who the assignments are?
Pretty please.
Yeah. Hold on 1 second. So yeah, I came prepared. 1 second. Give me 1 moment. That was the amendment that included us. I will pull that up real quick for you. Okay. Commissioner Hodge, I don't have it, I can't access it quickly, but I can send that out to the board. But there is a total of 21 individuals that sit on, that will be appointed to that committee, 21 different positions.
I'd appreciate that. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Betty. We appreciate all of your commentary and all of your thorough work and your responses and explaining everything in such detail for us. Just reminding you guys again, we have a motion for Bill 2863 that that motion was for us to be in full support of this bill, and it did pass. So thank you so much for your action on that item. I want to add one point related to the chair's report that I totally forgot to mention. My apologies. Just a reminder for the community, unfortunately, through this virtual process, we are holding public comment at this point, and we are going to continue through with the board proceedings. If you have any questions or issues or concern, please don't forget to contact ACDHH, the commission, Sherry Collins, the executive director, or myself as the chair of the board, if you have something that you'd like to be put down on the agenda for the next meeting. Okay, now I would like to move on, as I had mentioned, that we are going to be moving agenda item number 8 up to right now so that we can have the official elections. For some of the new members, I know it might seem as though you're not exactly certain what's going on. So let me give just a brief explanation of the officer elections. There's 3 positions. We have the chair of the board. Currently, I am representing that position. And then vice chair, Catherine Sanko is currently in that position. And then secretary, which is currently vacant. So what we can do is we can have a discussion, and you can nominate any persons to be the chair, vice chair, and the secretary of the board. And then after discussion, we can vote, or we can table the vote and put it off until the next board meeting. I moved it to number 6 on the agenda because this issue was tabled at the last board meeting. And so now that we have some new appointments and some new seats filled on the board, I wanted to give the opportunity to have a discussion. But if you, as the board, feel that we should table this, I'm happy to hear either way what you would like to do. Any thoughts or conversation related to the officer election?
This is Commissioner Keist. I suggest that we table it until the next meeting.
Commissioner Keist has offered a motion.
This is Commissioner Cienko. I move that PB stay on as board chair.
Okay, so we have our first motion from Commissioner Sanko. Commissioner Keist said to wait until the next board meeting to table it, and Commissioner Cienko has nominated me to continue as the chair. So I'm not sure what the process is when we have 2 different motions that have come up at the same time. Maybe just providing a second for one of these 2 motions. I could take some guidance here on what to do next. Sherry?
As the chair, appropriate protocol is recognize the first motion act. If she still wants to pursue with her motion, you need to get a second, if any, or she can withdraw. It's up to you.
Perfect. Thank you. I thought so. I just wanted to get some clarification on that. Okay, again, so we have Commissioner Keist and her motions to table the officer election until the next board meeting. Do we have a second for that motion? Commissioner Keist, would you like to continue with this motion, or would you like to withdraw?
I would like to withdraw my motion.
Okay. So now we have a second motion that has been proposed from Commissioner Cienko that has nominated PV Jantz to continue as the chair. Do we have a second?
This is Commissioner Vanover. I second
Commissioner
that.
Vanover seconds. And Commissioner Webster, you had your hand raised?
No, I was going to second or support that.
Okay. Okay, so I acknowledge that we have 2 seconds and a motion. It's open for discussion. I am
I will.
hesitant and very grateful and appreciative of your nomination. Katie. And then Commissioner Webster, it seems as though you wanted to add something, so I'll go ahead and give you the floor.
I would just, we've thanked a lot of people, but PV has done a wonderful job in this past year. So I hope he will take this motion and agree with it. Stop laughing.
Thank you. I do appreciate it. Yeah, you're not making it easy. I'm seeing some different facial expressions across the room here, and I plan to say something, but I think I'm going to drop that, and I will go ahead and accept the nomination.
Wonderful.
So what we'll do is we'll go ahead and vote with a roll call for the position of chair as PV Jantz. All in favor, please say aye when your name is called.
Sherry Berta, we need
It
to appear to do a roll call, please.
It seems that when I did the roll call before, I called Commissioner Brimhall when I should have called Commissioner Cohen. So for this roll call vote, Commissioner Benton,
Aye, yes.
Commissioner Cohen,
Aye.
Commissioner Collinsworth, Commissioner Collinsworth, thumbs up. Thumbs up, thumbs down. Commissioner Hensley,
Aye.
Commissioner Hutch,
Aye.
Commissioner Keith,
Aye.
Commissioner O'Rourke,
Aye.
Commissioner Cienko,
Aye.
Commissioner Vanover,
Aye.
Commissioner Webster,
Aye.
Commissioner Williams,
Aye.
Commissioner Jantz.
Abstain. Okay, thank you. The motion carries, and I will accept. So then we have the 2 other positions that we need to vote on until we have the vice chair that is currently run by Commissioner Cienko. Do we have any recommendations, motions, or discussion? Commissioner Keist?
I move that we keep Katie Cienko as vice chair. I would like her to continue to work with you, Commissioner Jantz.
Thank you, Commissioner Keist. I see a motion on the floor, and Commissioner Benton has seconded that. Do we have a few other seconds? Commissioner Cienko, your response?
I accept the nomination.
Okay, we have a motion, and I would like to take a roll call for this vote, please.
I'm sorry, I was finishing my notes. Commissioner Jantz,
Aye.
Commissioner Benton,
Aye.
Commissioner Cohen,
Aye.
Commissioner Collinsworth, thumbs up, thumbs down.
It seems as though she's frozen.
Okay. We will come back to her. Commissioner Hensley,
Aye.
Commissioner Hutch,
Aye.
Commissioner Keith,
Aye.
Commissioner O'Rourke,
Aye.
Commissioner Cienko,
Abstain.
Commissioner Vanover,
Aye.
Commissioner Webster,
Aye.
Commissioner Williams,
Aye.
and we will go back to Commissioner Collinsworth.
I think she's still frozen.
Is she still frozen?
Up or down, Tamara?
Okay.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, motion carries. Congratulations, Commissioner Cienko.
Thank you.
Okay, the third position is for secretary, which is now vacant. Do we have any motions related to the position of secretary? Sherry Collins would like to add a point of clarification.
Thank you, Mrs. Chair. Just for clarification for the new board members, just to let you know that the role of the secretary, really, you don't take every board meeting minute. We have the staff do that, but the secretary will review the board minute to make sure we cover all the bases. And also the secretary will have to take minute when we're in an executive session, and I'm always, there to assist. Just so you know that the work is not requiring you to take minutes in every board meeting, and anyone is eligible, including the new board member. The chair and the vice chair, you must be on the board for 1 year. The secretary can be anyone. Just wanted to clarify that. So for new board members, you're welcome to run for this position as well.
Thank you, Sherry. I always appreciate your feedback. So keep in mind, you can either nominate someone from the board or you can nominate yourself. If you have any questions or any kind of discussion, the floor is open as of now. Commissioner Keist?
This is Commissioner Keist. I nominate Commissioner Benton to be secretary.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Do we have any seconds?
It's Commissioner Vanover. I second that, and Webster as well.
Okay, I see Commissioner Vanover. All right, Commissioner Benton, your response?
Thank you, and I accept the nomination.
Okay, so we have a motion for Commissioner Benton to become the secretary. We are going to take a vote through roll call.
Commissioner Jantz,
Aye.
Commissioner Benton,
Abstain.
Commissioner Cohen,
Aye.
Commissioner Collinsworth, thumbs up, thumbs down.
Aye.
Commissioner Hensley,
Aye.
Commissioner Hutch,
Aye.
Commissioner Keith,
Aye.
Commissioner O'Rourke,
Aye.
Commissioner Cienko,
Aye.
Commissioner Vanover,
Aye.
Commissioner Webster,
Aye.
Commissioner Williams.
Aye.
All right, motion carries. Thank you. Congratulations, Commissioner Benton. It's nice to have
Thank
a
you.
secretary again. We appreciate it. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and move on with the next agenda item, which is the interpreter complaint. We have two names here. Oh, go ahead, Sherry Collins.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, I'm trying to treat it as if we're in person. We typically sometimes take a 5-minute break. And I'm wondering if the captioner could spend an hour and a half right now, if we should take a quick break. And if you decide, that's your call, but I recommend that a 5-minute break.
Yes, my apologies. Thank you so much for reminding me. We are going to go ahead and take a very brief, just recess for 10 minutes. We'll be back at 6 o'clock. At 6 o'clock, Commissioner Cohen. Okay, 6 o'clock. Thank you.
All right, it's 6 o'clock. If I could get everyone back to the meeting. We're going to make sure that we have a quorum before we get started again. Okay, it looks like we have a quorum. We are going to go ahead and get started again at 6:01 p.m. I would like to now talk about the agenda items for the interpreter complaints. I would like to acknowledge our AG, Joanne. Are you on the line with us?
Yes, I am. I'm here.
Fantastic. This is Commissioner Jantz. Thank you so much for joining us. Welcome back. It's good to quote unquote see you again.
Yes, thank you. I'm very happy to be back as well.
Excellent. We're going to put you to work. All right. I would like to have Emmett come on the line and give us the summary of the interpreter complaints. We'll go one individual at a time. So Emmett, can you please give the board the synopsis of the complaints? Good evening. I'm going to give my picture a minute to clear up. It seems to be a little bit frozen. It may take a second. Still freezing up quite a bit. Let me try to rejoin the meeting.
Emmett, this is Commissioner Jantz. Maybe if you take off the virtual background, it may help reduce the freezing.
Oh, this is my real wall behind me.
Oh, really? Well, okay. Very cool. It's actually quite funny.
Okay.
Proceed.
It looks like it's clearing up a little bit right now. Hopefully. So for Alexis Weissman, we'll go over that complaint first, and then we'll go over the next applicant, Renee Olivier. I'll first start with the short summary for Ms. Weissman. Make sure the interpreter is following along with me. Okay. Ms. Weissman failed to earn the total 12 hours prior to her license expiration and submitted additional hours that were earned after her license expired within 30 days, within the 30-day window prior to renewal. That is the summary of the complaint. And for you new board members, this is Emmett. You do have the ability to also read through the entire complaint on your own. This is Commissioner Jantz. Any questions or points of discussion?
This is Commissioner Hutch. I have
Commissioner
a
Hutch.
question. Is there any, I guess, grace during COVID? And is that an issue with this?
Well, it's not actually COVID related. I spoke with the individual. Oh, want to make sure that my picture is clear. Do I need to start over? Okay, I just want to make sure want to make sure the interpreter catches everything when my picture freezes. This is Emmett. It wasn't COVID related at all. It just so happened that when I interacted with the individual, they thought that the 1.2 CEUs that they needed to earn meant actually 1.2 hours, when in fact, that means 12 hours instead of an hour and 20 minutes. So the individual reached out to us and submitted those hours, but after the fact. Commissioner Webster?
Was this her first time to renew, Emmett? Was this the first time?
Yes, this was her first renewal.
Okay, so it could be an honest mistake or not.
Commissioner Cohen?
I'd like to clarify. So that means that the interpreter had 120 hours that needed to be completed and she didn't submit it within the correct time frame?
Just to clarify for Commissioner Cohen, the interpreter reached out to me asking to get clarification on the hours. They thought they were supposed to earn 12 CEUs, which they believe translated to 120 hours. But I wanted to clarify for the individual that provisional interpreters have to earn 12 hours, which equals 1.2 CEUs. She responded that she understood and that she would earn those 12 hours.
This is Commissioner Jantz. I have a question for you, Emmett. When you asked for clarification, when did she submit her application from that point?
You're asking when she submitted her renewal application. This is Emmett. The license expired December 19th, 2020. And the renewal application was submitted to the commission on January 17th, 2021. It's just a couple weeks ago.
And then when she submitted it, there were CEU hours that were left uncompleted.
She completed the continuing education documents that we asked to have attached. She showed that she had 11 hours and 15 minutes outside of the licensure year. So she only had 45 minutes of CEUs within the licensure year.
Okay, Commissioner Webster had a question.
Thank you. Commissioner Jansen and Emmett answered it.
This is Commissioner Jantz. Any other questions or discussion? Keep in mind that when an interpreter, this interpreter did send their application late and they did not have the hours required after the fact. I have another question for you, Emmett. Do you know of any work that the interpreter did after her license expired?
Oh, that's a good question. Let me look to clarify.
Mm-hmm.
She did pay the late penalty fees to the commission.
Anytime an interpreter works over the days that we have set in the precedent, then that's when that happens.
Good point.
The interpreter is going to interrupt Emmett and have him explain again. Okay, so for the interpreter, he's gonna clarify again. So yes, for the previous, in the past, the commission has set a precedence for renewals that are past the 30-day mark or within that time frame. They have paid $100 penalty fee, and that if they have worked anywhere within those 30 days, and the late penalty for and the late renewal penalty fee.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Commissioner Webster, do you have an additional question?
I don't think so. I can only compare, I'm a realtor, I can only compare it to our board. But it seems like there was already a penalty paid. Am I incorrect?
This is Emmett. Yes, the $100 late fee was paid.
So are we deciding to further penalize her is what we're looking at?
This is Commissioner Jantz. I would like to clarify Emmett's recommendation of requiring additional training or educational hours for this applicant. And there are two questions and comments. I see Commissioner Keast and then Commissioner Benton. Commissioner Keast?
Commissioner Keast, that already covered my question on that part. Thank you. I don't need any further.
Okay, Commissioner Benton?
I just wanted to clarify, the $100 penalty was not a penalty that was imposed by the commission because the penalty was because the candidate submitted their paperwork late. So that was a self-imposed penalty. That was nothing, that was their own fault. That was their own.
Okay.
So now we're looking at what's the consequence, if any, because they submitted their paperwork and they did not have sufficient CEU hours for the license that they were applying for. So that's what we're looking at now. So they didn't understand. They thought it was 1.2 instead of 12. So I would like to make a motion that we accept the staff's recommendation that we renew her license on the condition that she does take additional continuing education units on top of the 12 that are required before the end of this calendar year. And so if we say 2 2 units or 2 hours, which would be 0.02 or 0.2 or 0.02.
This is Commissioner Jantz. Thank you. We have a motion on the floor to renew the license with the understanding that she take continuing education with the additional 2 hours of additional continuing education. Is that correct?
Yes.
And would there
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. And Commissioner Hutch, do you have a comment?
Can there also be just a wording in there advising her to start her CEU well before the deadline?
Yes. Do you mind holding on that for just one moment, because we don't have a second on the motion quite yet. Okay. All right. Commissioners Webster and Vanover have seconded that.
Mr.
Commissioner
Vanover.
Hutch, did you have a comment or an amendment to the motion on the floor?
Well, I would just suggest in this case to have, Emmett, if you could add the wording that it's recommended to start CEU immediately. You have the full time to do it, and for people to quit waiting till the last minute.
This is Commissioner Jantz. Okay, I see there are some additional comments. We as a board can set a date by when the applicant must complete the hours. It's my understanding that if there's no deadline in place, then the applicant would have until the end of the calendar year to complete their continuing education, including the additional hours. Commissioner Benton, did you have a comment that you wanted to add?
Yeah, I would just, I don't support that, Commissioner Hutch. I think as a professional, it's our responsibility to understand what the licensing requirements are. It's something that's clear. It's clearly stated. If they're going to be licensed by a national organization, they need to know. To have a state license, they need to know. I don't think it's our job to spoon feed or baby people along the way. I think they need to be responsible for what they need to do to maintain their credential. So.
This is Commissioner Jantz. I appreciate your patience. There were several comments. Commissioner Vanover no longer has his comment. Commissioner Williams, and then we'll go to Commissioner Webster. Oh, okay. No comment for Commissioner Webster, so we'll go to Commissioner Williams. You have the floor.
I was just, I might have missed this, PV. During the period we're considering, is the interpreter allowed to work?
That was a good question.
This is Commissioner Jantz. The motion on the floor is that we renew the license with the requirement of additional continuing education hours. If the motion passes, that means her license will be renewed and she can begin working with those additional requirements in mind. Commissioner Keast.
Thank you. I have a question about the continuing education units of 2 hours. What kind of specific work or continuing education units is that? Is 2 hours, what is that equivalent to? Is that enough? Is that quality training? I'm curious what that would look like.
Emmett. This is Emmett. I would be happy to answer that. According to the rules, the continuing education must be relevant to the field of interpreting, which is similar to the RID standard that they have for their continuing education. But I do want to remind you that the interpreter is being asked to do 12 hours of continuing education by December 12th. And then there's an additional 2 hours, so it becomes a total of 14 hours.
Okay.
This is Commissioner Jantz. Any other questions about the motion on the floor? Should I repeat the motion or should we move on with? Okay, all right. I will repeat the motion on the floor. The motion on the floor is to renew Alexis Weissman's license with the requirement of the additional 2 hours of continuing education to be completed by the end of the year and the end of their license cycle. And we will have a vote. All in favor, please say aye or raise your hand. Any opposed? Abstentions? Seeing none, motion carries. And Emmett, do you mind taking the next complaint, please? And this is Emmett. I do want to remind you that at the previous board meeting, we did start talking about the complaint against Renee Olivier. And the board did not make a decision at the last meeting, and we're gonna have to ask Emmett to. This is Commissioner Jantz. I'm sorry, the commissioners are missing some of what you're signing. This is Emmett. I will try to sign slower. At our November board meeting, we did talk about the case against Renee Olivier.
This is Commissioner Cohen. I'm not picking up any of this. Yeah, you're frozen. You'll have to start again.
The name is Renee Olivier. This motion, we moved that we table this discussion, and that's where we left off. And this is Commissioner Jantz. This motion, we had a motion that this was tabled at our last meeting, and it was moved on to this meeting's agenda. And so we have that interpreter complaint. Emmett, we do have new board members. Do you mind briefly going over the issue and your recommendation? The applicant has since withdrawn her application, and so there is no discussion at this point.
Okay, thank you, Emmett. It seems as though since the applicant has withdrawn her application, then it's been completely withdrawn. Am I understanding correctly?
This is Emmett, yes. The commission acknowledges and confirms that the application has been withdrawn.
Okay, so then at this point, this is Commissioner Jantz, there is no more discussion if she has withdrawn her application. Commissioner Benton?
So when we were reviewing applications today, the application for Renee Olivier came up in the list of applicants that we were reviewing today. So she has reapplied then. So how do we handle the previous application and the current application?
Oh.
This is Commissioner Jantz. Emmett?
I'm sorry, can you ask your question again, please?
So when we were reviewing applications today in the interpreter licensing committee, Renee Olivier's application was one of the ones that we were considering today, but we didn't vote on it because it was to be discussed tonight, or her previous application was to be discussed tonight.
Thank you for that clarification, Commissioner Benton. For a point of clarification, Emmett did say that she has withdrawn her application, and then it seems as though she has submitted for a new application. Commissioner Benton is with the ILC committee and had reviewed her name, saw her name there today, and moved it here for us to discuss here at the board meeting. So we'd like to address her concern on that. Can you?
Well, yes.
Commissioner Benton, can you share your concerns with the board?
So from our last meeting, we had tabled this whole conversation because of the falsification of information on her previous application. And so we wanted to address it with the board. We went into executive session and we didn't reach a conclusion. And so it was tabled until this meeting. So we need to address what we were trying to resolve at the last meeting, and then get a recommendation from, if you want to refer her new application back to the ILC to review that the new application. But I think that it would probably be a good idea if we got some advice from the assistant AG on how to proceed at this point, because we have that outstanding one that's still unresolved.
Thank you, Commissioner Benton. I know Commissioner Webster had raised her hand and wanted to make a comment. Just keep in mind, we do have our AG here on the line as backup if we do feel that we need to go into executive session for legal consultation. We would have to make a motion, have it seconded, and then vote on that for us to go into executive session. So that is available. But Commissioner Webster, you have a comment or question?
I did. It was a very short length of time between when she withdrew her application and submitted the new one. Would that cause, that doesn't cause us to drop the initial complaint, or is that what we need to find out in executive session?
I think that would be a great question for our attorney. Yes. Commissioner Vanover? I move that we move into executive session. And this is Catherine Cienko. I second that. Sherry? Just 1 second. We have a motion on the floor to go into executive session, but for a point of clarification from Sherry Collins first.
For procedural clarification, we need to be very specific. So if I can offer clarification for the motion,
Right.
is that Commissioner Vanover, if you want to clarify your motion by being very specific that you move to go through the executive session to discuss Renee Oliver's application for legal advice.
Yes, got it. Okay, thank you, Sherry, so much. We appreciate your feedback. We always do. Commissioner Vanover, would you like to modify your motion? Yes, I would. I move that we go into executive sessions to discuss Renee Olivier's application for legal advice from our Attorney General.
This is Commissioner Keist. I second.
We have a motion on the floor and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Right.
Any opposition or anyone abstain? Motion passes. We're going to go ahead and go into executive session at 6:27 p.m. Sherry?
This is where the technical aspect, we're going to move into a separate room. So Jeremy needs to jump in and give an instruction how that's going to happen.
This is Jeremy. So what I need to know is, I just want to go over exactly who's going in. So far I have Andrew Cohen, both interpreters, Betty McIntyre, no Betty, Carmen, Catherine Cienko, Emmett Hassan, Fred Williams, Jen Shuck, the captioner, Jennifer Hensley, Joanne Handy, Judy Hutch, Melanie O'Rourke, Missy Keist, PV Jantz, Richard Vanover, Sarah Benton, Sherry Collins, Susan Webster, Tamara Collinsworth, and Victoria Vaughn. So who we are not entering into the room is Sherry Berta, Curtis Humphreys, Betty McIntyre, and myself. Okay,
Correct.
so what's going to happen is I'm going to open the room. Everybody will go into that. You'll be able to see the captioning. You'll be able to have your interpreters, but the people in the room that we're currently in will not be able to see that. And the people who are viewing on YouTube will not be able to see the executive session as well. So is everybody okay with that? And are we ready to go?
Jeremy, so how do I let you know we're ready to go back in public? Do I have to email you, or do I could do it in the chat?
You can send me a chat or send me a text message or however.
Okay.
Google chat.
Got it.
Okay. Everybody's going over now.
You can hear me? I'm supposed to be muted, right?
Okay, this is Jeremy. Are we all back?
This is Chair Jantz. It looks like we are all here. Thank you so much for your technical assistance today, Jeremy.
No problem.
We will go ahead and get our public session started again at 6:44 p.m. Do we have any additional questions or comments before we accept a motion?
This is
Commissioner Keast, you have a question?
I don't know if it's specifically a question, but I did want to maybe share my thoughts if that was permitted.
The floor is yours. We're open to discussion.
Thank you so much. Specifically regarding licensing, anytime there's any kind of maybe lack of integrity or falsifying anything, we know and we see this is happening. And so I don't know if we should, and it does happen from time to time. I don't know if there should be more strict punishment for certain things or how we really define.
This is Commissioner Jantz. Hold on just one moment. It looks like we're having some technical issues here.
It looks like somebody pressed screen share.
There we go.
Okay, technical difficulties have been resolved.
Yes, this is Jeremy. Somebody press their screen sharing. So be careful of the green button.
I didn't do it. It's Commissioner Keys. I didn't do it. I stay away from the green button. Okay, let me think. Where was I? Just sharing my thoughts regarding, just, you see it on social media. You see it all over the world. Interpreters faking things. They're not being honest. There's a lot of dishonesty. And I think that the board needs to really consider this with some heavy seriousness and the punishment that we decide to impose for people that are not being honest. I don't think that we should take this lightly. I think there's a huge, huge influence on the community and the consumers that they serve and the position that they hold as interpreters and how great of an effect that can have on communication. And so I really think that we need to take this kind of penalty very seriously and not just say, oh, you can take a couple more hours of continuing education units. Those are just my 2 cents there, but I do think that we need to have some extreme enforcement when it comes to the penalty for these types of offenses.
This is Chair Jantz. Thank you so much, Commissioner Keast. I see we have comments from Commissioner Cohen and from Commissioner Vanover. However, before I move on to your comments, I would like to give you a bit of history. We have been really stringent with ethical issues that have come up over the years when we impose any kind of penalty or fine when it comes to ethical issues. In my opinion, any kind of falsification of information, intentionally or unintentionally, can become an ethical issue. Any kind of fine that we impose, we want to make sure that we are consistent with the ethical fines that have been imposed in the past. I believe highly that we should impose a $300 fine for the ethical violation. We can use that as a ballpark. We can go up or down from there. I'm open to discussion on what you feel would be appropriate. Commissioner Cohen, I'll go to you for your comment.
Understanding I'm new as a commissioner here on the board, I'm not entirely certain if I can ask this or not. Are we able to ask this individual why she put that information on her application?
This is Commissioner Jantz. We can ask the individual to speak in front of the board if that is something that the board votes to do. However, keep in mind, we do have an application before us, And in executive session, we talked that over. What we can do is table this completely, or we can move forward with a variety of options that are available to us. Commissioner Vanover and then Commissioner Benton.
Emmett, we might need a little bit of assistance with this. On when you looked into this and investigated this, did she explain or give you any information about this issue? And then secondly, okay, yes. Do we know why she withdrew the first application reapplied? Emmett, do you know an answer to either of those questions?
This is Emmett. I'm not sure if I'm technically able to answer that question because the application has been withdrawn. That would be open for discussion amongst the board members. Commissioner Benton?
I was just going to point out to everyone that in the information packet that's provided, it does say in her letter that she wrote, she said, I should have included this information on my initial application. To be honest, I thought if I included all the details, it would slow the process down and I'd have to wait longer to get to work. So she knew that she was withholding information and she did it intentionally so that she could get her license approved faster. So I recommend that we move on this now, that we approve her license that she has submitted, and that we have discipline imposed on this applicant once her license is instated. That if and I guess I should open the motion, if it's a $300 fine and a minimum of 6 hours of continuing education units in the area of professional ethical behavior to be completed by the end of the calendar year.
This is Chair Jantz. Thank you so much, Commissioner Benton. I want to clarify, are you making a motion that we approve the license? And okay, thank you. And then instill that or set up that fine of $300 for the ethical violation and 6 hours of training on ethics.
This is Commissioner Hensley, I second that.
Commissioner Cohen seconds, Commissioner Sanko seconds. This is Chair Jantz. We have several seconds on the table. So what we can do now is we can either take a group vote or we can do a roll call. Any questions, comments, discussions on Commissioner Benton's motion?
I have a comment. This is Joanne, the Assistant Attorney General. If I just want to comment that the board can recommend that the license be granted, but the board has already delegated authority to the licensing committee to grant or deny applications. So the language, and Sherry, jump in if you need to correct me, the language I suggest you use is that the board recommends that the application is granted, and then the rest of the motion was fine.
This is Chair Jantz. Thank you so much for that clarification. Really appreciate your feedback. Commissioner Benton, do you accept the motion as modified?
Yes, I do.
Do we need to rephrase the motion or can we move forward with our vote? Joanne Handy, do we need to repeat the motion or can we move on with the vote?
I would repeat the motion.
Okay, Commissioner Benton?
I have to remember. Okay, I move.
It
that
looks
we
like
recommend-
Sherry has a comment.
Sorry for technical procedure for clarification. In addition to Joanne Handy recommendation with the appropriate language, for the record, if you could just specify the candidate name, please.
Thank you so much. Commissioner Benton.
I move that the board recommend approval of Renee Olivier's interpreter license application, and the board impose discipline of a $300 fine and 6 hours of continuing education units in the area of professional ethical behavior to be completed by December 31st, 2021.
This is Commissioner Vanover. I second. This is Commissioner Jantz. We have a motion on the floor and we have a second. Any additional discussion on the motion? Okay, we will move forward with a vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? Seeing none, motion carries. Okay. I think that's it for the interpreter complaints. Thank you so much for your assistance and your service this evening. We appreciate you being here with us, Joanne Handy. Thank you so much, and we're happy to have you back.
You're very welcome, Chairman.
This is Emmett. Are you all through with me then? Am I good to go?
I'm sorry. Yes, Emmett, I believe we are all done with you. Yes, okay. Moving on to, oh, Sherry, did you have a comment?
And that also we can let the Attorney General Joanne Handy go.
Thank you very much. Take care, everyone.
This is Chair Jantz. That was my intention. Thank you so much. Moving on to agenda item. That would be the Interpreter Licensure Committee update. Commissioner Benton.
Thank you, Commissioner Jantz. So the Interpreter Licensure Committee met today and reviewed 18, approved 17 applications. So with our meeting in January and our meeting today, that was 42 applications that were approved. And just I always find it interesting, 5 of them were for people who were in state. It's such a large number of applications that come from out-of-state BRI applicants. We had 3 provisional applications, which is always exciting to have new interpreters in the field. But as I said, 5 in state and all the rest were out of state. So yeah, thank you very much.
Wonderful. That's great news. 5. I wish we had more in Arizona, but out of those 5, if 3 of them are provisional, that's exciting. I really like to see those new applications come in. I would like to congratulate those new licensed individuals, and we're looking forward to receiving more applications in the future. Are there any future agenda items that you would like to see added to the next board meeting agenda in May? Okay, that concludes our agenda. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn if there's nothing else to go over tonight. Commissioner Vanover?
For the last meeting, I move to adjourn this meeting.
This is Commissioner Cohen. I second that. Thank you so much, Commissioner Vanover. Bittersweet, right? We have a second as well. All in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? Anyone abstain? All right, seeing none, board meeting is adjourned at 6:59 p.m.
Good luck, Richard.
Thank you again so much for your service. We will miss you, Richard. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank
Take
you,
care,
everyone.
everyone. Have a good night.
Good night.
Thanks,
now.
interpreters. Thanks for your patience tonight.
Thank
you,
you.
commissioners, as well. Thank you, Sherry.
Thanks, everyone. Good seeing you.